Okay, I'd like to call the meeting to order. And looking for approval of the minutes of September 9th, 2013.
Move to approve.
Second?
Any discussion?
A little bit. Page 3, under the section about the auditorium, just a little bit of clarification. The building committee asked what the needs for the auditorium were and received a report stating that we needed to professionally clean and fireproof the curtains and upholstery. Actually, what happened is we asked for bids for that work and received the initial findings through that assessment of the code deficiencies that were evident, and then subsequently ordered the structural investigations.
Anything else, Neil?
Nope.
No? Anybody else? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, thank you. Public communication? Cheryl, I have down Cheryl hi.
You want me to stand up and start?
Sure, please, then that way people can hear you better.
All right, Cheryl McEwen from Canton. And I've prepared a couple of comments I'd like to share with you tonight, and I appreciate the opportunity.
I'm sorry, I usually have pretty good hearing, but I cannot hear you.
Could you give her a microphone? Because I can't hear her either.
Move up to the
Okay. Can you move up closer? I apologize to the people in the back if they're not going, because her voice is going to come this way.
Yeah. These are not,
You can sit if you want, if you'd rather sit and be more comfortable. That's supposed to be on
Whatever you
display,
want to
know.
do, just so that we can hear you.
Okay. If everybody can hear me. All right, I appreciate the opportunity to say a few things tonight. I do have some prepared comments to talk about the budgeting process as you begin that for next year. I am a resident of Panton, and after receiving the tax bill this year, was quite alarmed, dismayed, and I might add a little mad with the property tax bill. The taxes in Panton, or my taxes, increased 13%. That's $2,000 on my tax bill. That bill was the tipping point of complacency and a call to action. Property taxes cannot keep rising every year, and that is why I'm here tonight to begin the quest for knowledge and find solutions. Part of my action plan is to get involved and to learn how you make your budget decisions, and it is my hope the community at large will do the same. I realize there is some complicated math that goes into the educational funding and that ultimately determines a property owner's tax bill. After speaking with legislators, town managers, other government officials, I have concluded that tax bills go up when school spending is not controlled. Maybe the educational funding system is broken, or maybe there is a spending problem at Vergennes High School. The bottom line is, it is the taxpayer that is caught in the crossfire and is paying for this. With that in mind, I have some questions, and I would appreciate a response to these questions, in writing if possible. Question number 1, do you have a spending goal in mind when you start the budgeting process? Question number 2, this starts with a statement. Last year, you spent $13,565 per pupil. The state allows $9,151. The difference of $4,414 per pupil is a driving factor in the tax rate. My question is, what is your projected goal for per pupil spending this year, or for this budget? Student enrollment is declining statewide. Is the enrollment at Vergennes High School declining? And what is the staff-to-student ratio? 4, tough decisions have to be made. How can you do a better job with the money you have? 5, how can special ed be handled more efficiently? You say this is always the driving factor in the budget. Is there new legislation needed in Montpelier to correct the way money is received or collected for special ed? 6, when is the next teacher salary and benefits negotiation? I would highly recommend contracting a professional negotiator and putting that fee in the budget. The teachers' union uses professionals, and the taxpayers deserve that representation too. The tax rate in the town of Canton went from 1.185 to 1.368 with the latest tax bill. This is a 17.88-cent increase in 1 year. Unacceptable.
What was that?
17.88.
No, what was it for?
That was our tax rate for the educational spending in the town of Canton.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay. Diane Lamphere, along with the Department of Education Finance, put together an information sheet for the town of Canton, exposing the cause of this increase. The bottom line, this increase was directly related to per pupil spending. By state calculations, the high school and the elementary school per pupil spending increased the tax rate by 47%. That's right, 47%. Now, tonight on the agenda, you want another $2 million for improvements from weary property owners, and I am saying there has to be another way. Is the Act 60 collection system broken, or is there a spending problem here at the supervisory union? As we start the discussion about the proposed $2 million bond, I truly hope there's not a lot of wish list stuff that can be done without. If you want this bond to pass, I would suggest that you figure out how to cut spending equal to the amount you want to raise for the bond, so the taxpayers do not see an increase in their tax bill for the life of the bond. Another thought, I would suggest some private sector fundraising or philanthropy. Maybe one of your successful graduates would donate a large amount of money to have their name on an auditorium. Or maybe you should sell the auditorium seats to individual donors who would in turn have their names on the plaque on the seat back. Have you asked? In other words, maybe it's time to think more like the private sector and not expect property owners to keep footing the bill. I do appreciate the job you are doing and the challenges that come with it. I know there are tough decisions to be made, and I would ask that you look at your budget with unrelenting scrutiny on the spending. It is time to cut the pork or anything that is not a must-have. The taxpayer cannot afford it anymore. I am asking that you remember the taxpayer in your budgeting decisions. It is their hard-earned money that you are spending. Thank you for your time.
Do you have a copy for us to
I do.
have? Okay, because you said you wanted answers in
Yes, I
writing, is that correct? Because I think some of those answers could be dealt, and if you're okay with that, do you want some of those answers to?
Sure, I'd love to open it for discussion.
Okay. But I do want to remind you, though, that, we don't set the tax rates. And I understand from what you wrote that you did you contact the legislators and the
Yes.
town? Okay,
Mhm.
okay. So
Yeah, I'm doing the whole gamut. I'm involved with this now, and I really want to figure this out because this cannot continue. There is a definite problem here. So this is just another step in the solution, I hope. Thank you.
So,
Am I next?
I'm sorry.
Am I next?
Yeah, I just wanted to see
Okay.
where did that, okay, Tom.
Mr. O'Brien has one.
Do we want to address any of that now, or are you going to put it in writing? Okay, all right.
Can I just ask before we respond, is it all right if we respond to the community with your questions, not just to you? Okay, so we can make the questions and the response public. That's okay with you?
Great.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Okay.
Can I say one other thing?
Sure.
You might be surprised to learn that the answers to your questions are not actually that difficult. And we would look forward to input from citizens like yourself who are paying attention to how school budgeting works as we go through the budget development process. Because there's some important things that you ask, but that by clarifying these things, everybody learns more. And it's very helpful. How the appraisals work, how they interface with the common level of appraisal for home values, how that works with our budget, how it works with the town tax rates, all that. Those questions are answerable. And so we look forward to that dialogue.
Great, thank you.
One further comment. What was the increase in the high school budget last year? It was 5%? And in the years before, it was 3% or less, as I recall, for 3 or 4 years.
Or considerably less.
My point being, the relationship between increases in tax rate and increases in school budget are not direct.
I realize that.
Okay.
In this case, it did have a big impact on our budget. And the CLA, I'm already very much aware of the CLA. Believe me, I'm going to all aspects of this. And what's the driving force? CLA did affect us this year, but also your school spending affected us.
But just so that I'm clear, the portion that we are able to control in our recommendations to the voters, who ultimately have the say, was increased about 5% last year. And in the prior years, approximately 3% for a run of 3 or 4 years, at a time when the rate of inflation was running 2.5% or 3%. So I just want to make sure that we're all starting from the same knowledge base, that the portion that the board can control has been at those levels and does not relate one-to-one with the rate of increase in your taxes that you described.
Jeffrey, it's very complicated to understand that. But the fact that, and one inexorable fact is, when you increase your budget, the taxpayers have to cover it.
That's right. And
I mean, you can talk 3%, 5%, the number of students may be going down, the amount of spend. There's no law that says you can't come in with a budget lower than prior year. I mean, I haven't seen that passed by the legislature yet. And so, you know, the taxpayers, it is complicated and CLA affects it. But the fact is, the decisions made in this room that are approved by the voters, it will affect people's taxes.
Absolutely.
Anybody else?
My turn?
Yeah, sure.
Hey. I'm glad these people showed up. They're preaching the same thing I am. And we've been talking about this for 2 years now, and I'm glad there's more than one person in this room that's concerned about taxes.
you're right.
And I'm seriously considering writing a letter to the editor of the Addison Independent about how do you bury $1 million capital improvement to the boiler system in a $2 million bond. Maybe you can help me figure out the byline. How should I describe that? And I think I'm talking to you, Neil, primarily.
Okay.
All right? There was a $2 million proposal last year. We were talking about $2 million budget for the school. Included in that was going to be refunding the $600,000 budget for the roof. You're going to redo that. You were going to include that.
Call it refinance.
Yeah, the 600,000. So you've taken that out of that, right? It's no longer in your proposal. The only thing I'm referring to in the proposal is what was in the paper. So that's all I have to go by. So you took $600,000 out of the budget, right? Out of your previous plan was a $2 million budget.
We've been, David, just to clarify, we've been actively working on formulating a plan for the critical infrastructure needs of this building so it doesn't fall down, to bring in front of you all tonight.
Okay, good.
There's a great crowd of people here, which is
I know,
good. So it's
that's a
nice to
good
have
thing.
the opportunity to actually speak to, frankly, more than just yourself, who's been coming
Okay.
very, very regularly.
Right,
So
yep.
that's on the agenda for later, to hear exactly what's on our minds.
Okay. Well, you're still burying, I assume you're still talking about a pellet system, or you're not?
Not necessarily.
Not tonight.
Yep.
Okay. Taking the wind out of my sails. What are
Sorry,
you
I don't mean to
proposing?
take wind out. I mean, if you want,
Well, no,
good
because I was
headwind.
gonna talk in great length about how you morphed this, what was once a $2 million project into a $2.2 million project, and taking out the $600,000. What's the rest of it for? It sounded to me like you want to improve the sidewalks. That was in the other budget. That was.
David, what I'd love to,
Why
With the
don't you
chair's
explain
leave.
all that, and then we can go back and I'll ask my questions.
so we're gonna get there.
Can we jump to that now? Because we got all these people who are concerned about how you spend our money. You can't, why not?
Because we can't. We have-
Yeah, I get two points. This could be a very, very long meeting. That's the bad part, because the Red Sox are playing tonight.
I'm with you.
The
We'll
good
keep it
part
short.
is, they ain't gonna win the game till the 9th inning. So we can go to 11 o'clock and still know what's going on.
But I'm hoping we will not.
And the other thing I would strongly recommend from the people here, not only this side of the aisle to that side of the aisle, shut off your cell phones. I've been talking in here and people have taken cell phones and run out that door, people on the board. I've sat here, given my discussion, and people are playing like McCain, playing whatever he was playing, I don't know, playing crap on his cell phone. That's rude. It really is. And you shouldn't be doing that as people who ask for input from people in the audience to act like that. So I would suggest, as a matter of decorum for this group, shut off your cell phones. If you have an emergency, somebody can come on and bang on the door. It's a matter of decorum. So you might want to take that into advice, but that's happened to me here personally, and it's not appropriate. I will make that as a recommendation if you don't already have it. But I would like to hear what you have in regards to what your proposal, you're going for a $2.2 million bond that none of us here who are concerned about the value of it have any knowledge of it, and we don't, and you're all, sounds like you all want to get home for the Red Sox game. So why don't we just change the sequence of events a little bit, tell us what's in it, then we can discuss it, then we can go watch the Red Sox. Is that fair? I mean, can't you do that?
Well, we do have an agenda that we do follow.
Well,
I'm-
turn it
wait.
around, change the numbers. That's
Okay.
all I'm asking.
I understand that, but we do have to do a few things before we go into that discussion, okay? And actually, I would need to ask the other board members if they agree to change the order of
They're
our
right
agenda.
there. Would you like to do that? Would you like to
I'm
understand
sorry,
what they're
sorry.
proposing?
I'm sorry. I have to ask the board members if they, it's not your decision,
Okay,
it's not
all
the
right.
audience decision, it's our
Okay.
decision
All
whether or
right.
not we want to change the order of our agenda. I hear you, and I understand what you're saying.
Okay.
It's just not fair to other people to railroad us into a decision when I can't hear.
I'm not trying to do that. I'm
Okay,
just
but no,
looking
but
for-
could you wait, let me talk?
Yeah,
These other
absolutely.
people need to have input, so I need to be fair to them.
I can get mouthy, I'm sorry.
Okay. So,
Sorry. Comment. You're making recommendations about not using electronic devices. I happen to use electronic devices for notes, for other things. So I just want to address that. You may not use an electronic device the same way I do. I look at it as a way to make my service to you better by having information available to me that's not necessarily on the desk. So just wanted you to know that.
Okay, well, but my comments apply to everybody here. I mean, having cell phones go off or, I think it's inappropriate, to be honest with you.
okay, thank you. So I'd like to ask the members of the board if they're okay with changing the order of our agenda.
Can you be more specific?
Well, I guess we would be going down to number 8. Is that correct? 7D? Okay. Well, I guess it also looked like the other part was going to be part of it too, but okay. So we would go down to 7D, 1.
Move that up. Do we have an educational presentation tonight?
No.
Okay, so move that up above reports to the board and after board communications.
After board communications? Okay.
I
Second.
don't think that usually takes very long.
I'll second that.
All those in favor? Okay. There is one other thing, though, before, I apologize, Neil, that I did, and Carrie, actually, we're going to do a reorganization now. And, actually, we have to have more opportunity for public comment. So after the end of public comment, then we'll do reorganization, and then we will do board communications, and then we'll do D.
Oh, good, because I was gonna propose that we do the board reorganization during the board communications.
Well, there you go. Okay. Is there any other public communications? Carol?
I had a couple of questions. I know there's been a facilities committee meeting, and I think one time you talked about an audit committee, and I'm very encouraged that you're setting these up. But I was wondering, are minutes coming out of those committees?
Tax rates.
Are minutes being taken
For those two committees that you just mentioned?
for the committees? Yeah, for any of the committees that are being.
For the facility committee?
I would call the facilities committee more of an ongoing discussion. We have not been collecting minutes, however, we've been formulating our proposal. I mean, the outcome of which you'll be hearing shortly, actually, now.
Okay.
The the reason we haven't been taking minutes is we've only been talking. We haven't been taking any actions.
Okay. I would like to present.
And further to clarify, there is no audit committee of the high school. There's an audit committee of the supervisory unit, just to clarify that.
Okay. I would like to bring your attention to a law, and it says a public body is defined in 1 SA 310 as, quote, any board, council, or commission of the state or one or more of its political subdivisions, any board, council, and commission of any agency, authority, instrumentally of the state, or one or more of its political subdivisions, or any committee of any of the foregoing boards, councils, or commissions. A meeting under Vermont's open laws must be properly noticed, minutes must be taken, and the public must have an opportunity to express its opinion. So I'd like to ask you to, have a discussion about what it would mean to comply. I know within the town boards, they have all their different zoning and stuff, and everybody records and takes minutes. And
We don't come under that one. The committee
The committee,
meetings
yeah.
that we've been having don't come under that one.
Because they don't take action.
I don't think you do, but Jim Condos, he is great. I don't think you have to be. I think it's just board members. When you're meeting outside of the board on behalf of the board, a subdivision.
There's no quorum, Carol. If there's not, is it 4 or more? Then it's a quorum, and then you'd have to take notes. But if it's not a quorum, it's not considered the board, it's a committee.
Okay.
Nonetheless,
I'll
I
ask-
think what Carol brings up is a reasonable point that, well, what's going on? What are you guys talking about?
Well, because I'll be honest with you, I was really shocked with the Addison Independent because, I've been coming, and last year, there was a lot of voices that it was brought up really quick, and we didn't have a lot of discussion, and I felt like the transparency was going to be different this time. And so everything has been happening within the facilities committee, and I just haven't felt that we've been allowed to have, the public input, which open meeting laws require. So, just to think, Jim Condos, he'll answer your question the same day. He's a great Secretary of State. And the other thing is, I would like to ask you to consider policy on filling an empty board seat. Addison's seat has been empty since the resignation of Don Jochum, July 30th. Law requires for it to be filled in 30 days. I would like to see transparency. It didn't get into the Addison Independent until, I think it was September 30th. So that was already 60 days after the resignation. And just really work hard to include our community and put the notice out there. There's one other thing I was concerned about is I love America. And America has really gone out of their way to create these separation of powers. And so when I looked at the flyer that Chair Kelly, she's the chair of also the Addison Board, put out, anyone who wanted to apply for the elected seat that was empty had to send their application to Superintendent O'Brien. During the voting process, anybody who wants to run goes to the clerk's office. I just would like to see a little clear line drawn because, you know, it's an elected position. And I don't know why it couldn't go through the clerk's office directly to our chair.
You realize we don't have any say in this board does not.
We don't have
I
any say.
would assume you could give an opinion. You are board members.
You yourself gave us this chapter and verse of the statute. You sent us chapter and verse of statute. It indicates where the responsibility for filling the position lies. And right now, I believe we have a member.
Yep.
You are, or anybody else, is welcome to get a petition together and run for that open seat come
March.
town meeting day.
Yep.
And there's no malfeasance on the part of this entity or this district in terms of how this was done, you know.
No.
Unfortunately, what the law says intersects with the lives of very busy people in a time in society where things operate at a much different speed and people have much different sets of responsibilities than they used to. And
Therefore, the
I
necessity
have,
of
the Addison Board has my forgiveness or forbearance for taking some time, and I really appreciate your service.
With that comment, I just want to make one more statement because Addison was penalized greatly. And you have a board member now who was creating and approving budgets. 09, 10, 11, 12, we were hit really hard with penalty for exceeding our thresholds. Now that all the audits have come in, every year was a surplus. I'm done. I'm done.
Okay, it was just that you're not, this is the Vergennes Union High School Board. You should be taking your discussion to the Addison Board in regards to that, so.
But you need to,
I just don't think it's appropriate.
advocate for our kids in our school. I think it's important that you're aware of that.
Anybody else for public comment? Yes?
I'm concerned with these half days on the school calendar because your DO kids and your vocational kids have to go to school all day. The kids that come to the high school seem to have a half day of playtime because there really isn't any academic classes happening on that half day. And I just think it's a big waste of taxpayers' money. And we're having a second parent conference day. The high school has already had one. This Friday, I guess the elementary schools are having one, and it's another day off. I think if you look in this, since school has started, there has been 2 weeks, 2 5-day weeks that have had academic days. You had a whole week of homecoming that had a block of time that was for building floats or other activities within the school. For what our taxpayer dollars are paying for, we need to be educating these kids more when they're in school.
Is this calendar year any different than any other calendar year? I guess I'm just
We have not had these half days.
What's
It is
that?
a little bit different. We stacked the, look at the top.
We added, I think, 4 half-days to the calendar.
But those are, I mean, they're not all globbed together in one
No,
spot. They're
throughout the
spread
year.
out throughout the year. So I guess I'm just not following as far as, like, you're saying that it seems like there's,
This will be the second half day since school started.
oh, okay, but did you hear Mr. O'Brien say that there were, my understanding is that there's an additional 4 half-days, but they're spread out throughout the year.
Yeah, my point still being, it's a wasted half day. Why go to the expense of transporting all these students to school if they're not going to be having academics. They can go to their own playtimes.
Okay. Mr. Webley?
Well, it is not true that we're not having academics. One of the realities of moving to the PBGR system is that we have to give kids time to understand how to excel in the performance-based graduation requirement system. So freshmen and sophomores are intensely academic during those morning half days, and seniors are trying to, juniors and seniors are going to be training on things like writing senior essays, preparing for SATs. How do you take an SAT in math, something we've undersold for years and years and finally have a chance to do. We are scrambling, and in 2 years, all kids will be, if they have a half day, would be working on their PBGRs. Be an opportunity to formulate their PBGR plans, their personalized project plans, and so on. It's a little clumsy when you've got 2 classes that aren't responsible for PBGRs and 2 that are. So our teachers done a magnificent job of scrambling to fill in the junior senior time with meaningful instructional experience. The afternoon is professional development, and that's designed to save tax dollars so that we can do professional development here inside the school more cheaply than sending teachers off to college for classes. And that's the preferred design of professional development now. So I think it's a red herring that we're not having. I admit we had a day that I wasn't too happy with on the junior class where they ended up test prepping and then bowling. I wasn't real happy with that, but we're not doing that anymore. We've fixed it. We're doing academics on those half days, and it's unfortunate that the Hannafords and DO kids have to go all day, but that's their program. That's the program they're in. So that would be my response.
Any other public comment? Okay, board communications.
I wanted to know if we were taking any steps that related to keeping people or making people, or at least our students, feel safe, given some of the things that have, maybe even our staff, given some of the things that have been in the news relating to the teacher in Massachusetts that was supposedly, killed by a student, or maybe it relates to the suicide that happened at Mount Abe recently. And if there was any steps that we were taking to make sure that people's mental health was in a good place, or checking in some way that might be a little bit different.
We're fortunate to have 5.5 FTEs of clinicians that work in this building through CSAC. Said my old school's acronym. We also have RRC, which is our Resource and Response Center. They deal not only just with behavior, but students' mental health. We work in tandem with them, classroom teachers, and referring them. We have a full school counselor component with school. We talk about that. It's part of our curriculum and how to address that, how to report that. We made parents aware through our e-news, resources for suicide, understanding suicide ideation, what can be done about that. We also talk a lot about bullying and harassment and the effect and impact of that on members of the school community. So I think, there's never enough that you can do, but we're doing a good job here addressing that, I think.
And I'd just like to point out, in addition to that, you have 5 20-minute morning meetings a week in which there's a meaningful adult trying to facilitate discussions that are uncomfortable sometimes for kids. And so we've got to build in safeguard a little bit in that we're building smaller communities and meaningful relationships in morning meeting and 7 through 12. So that's also a big part of our safety plan.
And in the middle of the day, every student goes back to that morning meeting advisor for a period of time we call callback. It's academic support, but they're also touching base during the day, and that's another time to say, how's the day going, maybe after a rough start in the morning.
Can I just add something? As a direct response to what happened in Nominate, I don't know if you folks remember the Vergennes Compliments Facebook page that was started about a year ago. And anyway, that got restarted again just after that to sort of be a positive impact when the students were here. So the students are trying on their part to contribute.
This was talked about quite a while ago, but, you know, bringing in dogs randomly, and I know that the board struggled with that. And at that time, all of my healthy kids were in the school, but now I have a challenged kid who's in the school, and I'm telling you, him knowing that dogs come in on a random basis to keep him safe from drugs would help him immensely within the school environment.
So we're going to go on to board reorganization, and I apologize I didn't have Michelle introduce herself. Most of the people here know you, but if you want to introduce yourself.
I'm Michelle Kelly from Addison. Right now I'm currently serving as the Addison Central School Chair. I've been on the Addison Central School Board for, this will be my 4th year. And since we could not find a volunteer that was willing to work at the high school level, even though we put out information in the clerk's office, on the web, in the newspaper, word of mouth, in the offices of the schools. You can't appoint someone if there's no one there to appoint. So I volunteered to fill the position until Election Day in March.
So, Tom,
Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle.
Nominations are now open for the chair of the Vergennes Union High School Board.
I'll nominate Kirk Haggis.
Second.
Got a nomination and second for Kurt Haggis. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Congratulations, Kurt.
I'd like to thank both Neil and Lori for taking responsibility for running the meetings after Dawn left, and taking careful attention to detail while we were without a chairman. So thanks a lot, Lori, and thanks. So after the reorganization of the agenda, I believe we're at 8-1 for discussion items.
You want to do the other positions?
I didn't know that they were changing, so.
You can remain vice chair?
I will.
Yep, and Neil?
Is there a need?
No, I didn't
Well,
think.
we were vacant the chair, so if everybody else is.
Yeah, I think I've spoken to everyone about it. But just to confirm, Neil, are you willing to continue as clerk?
I thought I did a good job with
Yeah.
that last set of minutes that I put together when you were away.
Yeah, well, I thanked you for it, so I appreciate you staying on as clerk, and I think Lori is willing to
Yep.
stay as vice chairman. So, are there any other positions that I'm unaware of? Okay. So that we've reorganized the agenda, and we'll make the next item in the agenda, the discussion items, listed as 8 and 8.1.
No, we're 7.
7, excuse me. D1.
Oh, I apologize.
So, I think most of you have this spreadsheet.
You know, could we just do an overview? We have an audience here, so before we jump into numbers, I think it would be really important to have a little bit of context and some history, so that as we begin to discuss detail, it's in that context. There was a vote last November for a bond issue of approximately $6.5 million to fund a range of improvements at the school. It included deferred maintenance that's needed on the building. It included significant improvements to the auditorium. It included significant improvements to the recreational facilities. That vote did not pass.
Also the cafeteria.
Cafeteria, thank you. Kitchen and cafeteria. I put that under deferred maintenance. There was a second vote in February. There were two questions put to the public at that point. It essentially took the November proposal and broke it into a component that split out the recreational facility improvements, was one question, and the bigger question was to deal with the deferred maintenance issues and the auditorium improvements. That bond issue was also defeated. Town meeting occurred, board reorganized. As a board, we reviewed what did we learn from these past two votes? Where do we go from here? As a new board member at that point, one of the first things that I asked for was context to understand how Vergennes Union High School compares to its cohort. So just as in the annual report that's published and shows how our student test scores compare with our cohort, which are about 6 schools around the state that are similar to us in terms of size and demographics. I wanted to see how our costs for maintenance of this facility compare to our cohort. Because remember, a significant component of what we had asked people to vote for was deferred maintenance on this building. Despite the fact that we may have declining student numbers, we still own this building as a community. And when we delay proper maintenance of this building as a community, we're not saving money because it costs us money in the end. So to have a building go to the point where the roof leaks into classrooms doesn't save us money. It costs us money. And I can go through example after example of deferred maintenance like that. When we looked at how Vergennes Union High School compared with its cohort, we found Vergennes Union High School at the bottom of its per square foot spending on maintenance and repairs. In fact, half what the highest number in the cohort was. That's part of our challenge. And so as a board, we decided that we were going to try to address the school's need in a few components. The first was that we would reprioritize what we would put before the public to deal with deferred maintenance. So for those of you who want to know that we've thought long and hard, there is not fat. What we've done is prioritize, and we're addressing the critical components that are needed at the school at this time. We have a roof that is leaking. That's the first thing that we've dealt with. We have a kitchen that's original to the school, 1958. It's not safe. It's not efficient. It's not efficient in terms of its use of energy. It's not efficient in terms of its use of labor. We have an auditorium that had significant safety problems. We have other infiltration of water into the building through site means. We have pedestrian safety issues as a result of traffic flow. So we've prioritized to look at the items that we need to address right off. And that's what we're asking the voters to vote on this fall. We'll be discussing tonight. But that's just one component of what we want to do. So that takes the immediate needs of the building that we as a community already own and need to deal with and address that. But we also think that there are significant other policies and programs that we as a school board should be recommending to you, the voters. And those include, one, addressing the fact that we've underfunded maintenance and repairs over the years. So as we look at our budget tonight and we feel the pressures and we understand that taxes go up when we increase school spending, we're under pressure here. We can't take that information about being a low-spending district on maintenance and repairs and not address that. So that's going to be a pressure on our budget this year, to try to responsibly budget for maintenance and repairs so that predictive and preventive maintenance are something that we regularly do here. That's going to make our budget go up. No two ways about it. The third thing that we should do is do what the 3 elementary schools in this district do and have done for years, which is they budget for depreciation. And they set up reserves at all 3 of the elementary schools so that when a boiler goes or a roof goes, the things we know are going to need to be replaced, we've been saving for that every year, year in and year out. If we add those reserves to our budget, it's going to make the budget go up. But it also means that the boards 10 years out and 15 years out and 20 years out will have reserves available, just as the elementary school boards do, to deal with some of those things so that they are not in a position where they're going to the voters because the roof is leaking and they don't have the funds to deal with it. Our fourth point was to look at the overall cost of running the school and recognize that we have a bond issue that paid for improvements to the school that were completed in the year 2000. And that bond issue will be paid off in 2021. And we've asked supporters of the school, we've asked students, we've asked faculty to bear with us and to plan so that we look at the next round of needed improvements at the school at a point where that bond issue has been paid off in 2021, and we will have a significant reduction in cost that we can then look at how we allocate. Some to savings in terms of school budget, some to improvements that have been deferred. So that's the context. Before we get into any numbers, how did we get here tonight? That's how we got here. So what we're going to be talking about tonight is one point of 4 points that we hope to implement that will address the long-term facility needs at Vergennes Union High School.
Jeff, you're looking at me when I know you're looking
Looking at everybody.
But you're preaching to the...
Could you raise your hand before you speak,
I'm sorry,
please?
yeah.
What I'd like to do is just to make sure everyone has a chance to speak that wants to, that we do follow that,
Okay.
you know, that raise the hand thing. And I know everybody wants to do that.
I just want to say you're preaching to the choir, because I've been listening to all this for 8 months now, and you're on the right track there. 100%, I agree with you.
Thank you.
I assume, Jeff, we're, in addition to recognizing we should be having a maintenance line item in the budget, everybody, I'm sure, agrees with it. In the past, we haven't done this in the past, and that's why we're in the soup now. We're
Sir?
also spending an equal
Sir?
amount of time.
Could you
Oh,
identify
sorry.
yourself, please?
Yeah, I'm Paul Tippett. Also looking for offsets.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
Paul Tippett.
Paul
I live in
Tibbet, thank you.
So I assume we're gonna spend an equal amount of time looking for offsets in the budget so that these aren't always 100% incremental increases in the budget. Is that gonna be on your plate?
It's possible.
Yeah,
So-
there's scenarios. One of the things that that we've struggled in communicating, and hopefully having people here will increase the communication, is one of the things we've struggled with is we can't change the past. What we can do is we can try to predict what the future will be if we do certain things. So what was in the past is we have not invested in the facilities here like we should have. And because of that, and probably the a current episode of that is the roof. Knowing that we're probably going to refinance those roof costs, we went ahead with a different financing vehicle in order to get the roof fixed so that we didn't have water coming in and destroying equipment. So that's kind of a reactionary way of doing things. Even though we're trying to get away from that, we still have to deal with the past. So what we're predicting and what the numbers we've put together show us, at least in mathematical terms, is that we'll actually be able to save money in the outlying years if we do this now. So did that answer your question?
No.
Okay, could you ask me your question again?
The question is, the context that Jeffrey legitimately passed on to us, which was very helpful,
Yep.
says that we have not been spending what we should be spending in the past, that we should have had a line item for maintenance and so forth. We haven't, so we're in the soup now. And we're gonna have that line item will, as you discussed, as you suggested, will add to the total amount of money required for the budget for next year. My question is, who is spending the time going over the budget to find offsets, to find reductions in areas to help finance that, so it's not 100% incremental increase?
Correct.
Yeah, so the answer to that is again, I'll say it a different way. We can't change the past.
I'm not asking you to change the past.
But we have to react to what happened in the past.
I'm asking you to change the future.
Yeah.
That's what I'm asking you to do, is instead of just saying, this is gonna be incremental, folks, so instead of saying, we gotta do these things, and I agree
Yeah.
that you have to do them.
Okay.
But there's no, especially with enrollments going down, which I assume is the case here as well. You gotta find a way to say, but we're also looking for ways to save money. And we'll use that money more effectively than we're using it for whatever's been in the budget historically.
We are.
Well, I'd like to find out what's being cut. I know it's a terrible term.
Yeah,
But that's what we need to look at.
yeah, go ahead, Neil.
So I've been on the elementary school in Vergennes and then this board for some total of 10 years.
You deserve a medal.
Thank you. I don't feel like I'm getting one, but that's okay.
Get the
But I
Mother
do
Teresa
want folks to understand, and this might not be a popular statement, I believe, amongst who's in the room, but I'm not a big fan of cutting program right now. We did a lot of cutting program during the difficult years that we just came through. You heard us talking about budget increases in the order of 3%. That's actually not true. In the one instance, we had a dead level budget. In another instance, it was 0.9%. We had some very, very responsible budgets in the face of some very, very difficult financial times. At the same time, we are required to deliver an educational program to our students, and we don't want to provide for them a facility that's adequate. Not that's Cadillac, that's adequate for that program and not be able to deliver the program. So I am with you that we need to be creative and sharp with the pencil. But I'm not going to sit here and say, as a representative of my community, Vergennes, that I'm ready to cut 3 teachers in order to afford an auditorium bond payment for 1 year. I can't, in good conscience, go there. So we can be creative, but the budget dialogue, the bond dialogue are intersected, as you're well pointing out. And that's my statement for right now.
Did you want to respond, Jeff?
I think that there are at least 2 opportunities to look at offsets. One is that we will separately be looking at energy conservation improvements in the school, which we believe, given further work and research, will not only pay for themselves, will actually result in net savings to the operating costs of the facility. We're not there yet, but that's one place that we're looking to have an impact on expenses. The other will be in the discussion of the school budget itself, and that starts tonight. It's an agenda item.
Go ahead, Dave. And then someone that you're related to.
You need to be, I think you need to look at efficiencies, and with your teacher ratio, which I think is 10-1, at least that's thereabouts. If you can go to 11-1, that's a 10% increase. You know, and that's what this gentleman's asking. You know, let's have an offset. Let's use our teachers more efficiently, combine classes, use electronic. You know, we've talked about this before. Sell this physical, let's stop investing in physical plants, sell it to an entrepreneur and EB5 thing. They got lots of money. They could turn this into a technical training center for the people in the community after school, and we could put out some components like you build, Kurt. You're fully aware of what remote training centers could be. Move them where the population is, and let our current teachers teach multiple kids instead of 10 kids per student. They go to 40 kids per student, and you could use. I mean, there's our whole education system is ripe for improvement, and if we don't have a plan to get us to a lower student-teacher ratio, we ain't never going to get there. And I've been preaching that for a year now.
We've talked about this privately, and we've talked about it in public, and all of those ideas are great ideas. The implementation of those ideas, though, is more difficult.
I understand that, but without a plan, without a direction to get there, you know, and you get some of the smartest people in this room, and they're kids. They know how this school should be run. Don't you think?
Yeah.
You
They
want
do.
creative.
They have an active
You want
part
to
in it.
create. The new plan is to create creative skills. Well, give them an assignment next year. How should this school look in 20 years?
Yep.
There's an assignment for them. All right?
I would recommend that you start going to the Vermont School Boards Association, because we had
I ain't got time.
presentations like that. Okay. Nancy?
I agree with looking at the budget and doing what you need to do and not wasting and putting money away. But what I'm concerned with is the 6 years we're putting off, or are we just saying we're gonna have a lower level auditorium than any other school? I'm concerned that we have to go to the Opera House and have a musical review. My kids will be out of here, so, I mean, it's not them it's gonna affect, but if I had someone in the elementary school that was really gifted in music, I'd be so concerned right now about how we're just saying we'll Band-Aid the auditorium and not deal with it for 5 or 6 years.
So hold off on the auditorium, because we're doing a little more than first aid. We're not doing what, in any way, shape, or form, what we planned, but we're gonna get it a lot better than where it was. Or we propose to get it better than where it was.
Yeah, so,
And the cafeteria and
I mean,
certain
that-
kids.
Neil, I'd like to
We have to
control
deal
a
with the
little.
kids that are still in this building every day, and I hope that that's a concern to people, not just your money. That you are concerned about the future education of the kids living in Vergennes. This is your future, and I'm not saying, we have to be extravagant about it, but we also have to be really aware of the little people here in this city. There is nothing to do in this city, and I've said that for 30 years. This school is the kids' entertainment. It's their life. There used to be, in the 50s, a bowling alley and a movie theater. I think they both burned, and that's the end of that. They have sports, they have music. This is their hub. This is their life. And we're just Band-Aiding it. I'm sorry, I'd rather spend the money and let the kids grow up with a good education and a good place to be. Safe
Okay.
kids.
Christina?
Hi, I'm Christina. I would just really like to echo what Nancy said, and I would like to request that the board in your future planning, it's not just about the here and now, it's about 20 years from now, and how do we attract people to this community? It's through a vibrant school system, and I agree that a Band-Aid on something is not gonna to be thinking about the here and now, but we also need to be planning for the future. And I want to see Vergennes and Ferrisburg and Panton and all these lovely places we live grow and remain vibrant, not shrink, and, you know, have buildings that are substandard. I'm not suggesting ours is substandard, but, you know, if we keep putting Band-Aids on, that could happen. And anyway.
So to get back to the agenda item, this is what we think is a good step forward. It's not something that we're looking at as a proactive step. It's a reactive step that we feel we have to take. And so let's, I guess, get back to the agenda item, and that is, if you don't have an agenda in front of you, it's to adopt and warn the proposed facility repairs and improvement bond. So, Kathy, do you want to go through this?
I can go through this.
Thank you.
So this is the long spreadsheet. Some of you have, some of you have highlighted items in yellow, and I think others have it in shaded. And those are the items that we have been concentrating on this time. And then there is a column, scope revisions, October 2013. It's the third column. It's the third column in. The first two columns have the what we considered in the prior two elections. So the site work is pretty much remains the way that we had looked at it before. The cost for that site work has increased substantially. It has more than doubled due to the cost of blacktop, the cost of paving. So we are looking at sidewalk repair and improvements. So that would be the sidewalk that's out here of the school. Seems like it's always underwater, so we would be repairing that. We'd be, there's some paving repairs that need to be done to this parking lot to the west. Some sediment control items. Some bus access and safety improvements, and it's not typed in here, but there's also, we would be adding some handicap parking spaces to right outside here. At the same time, we decided to delete the sidewalk extension on the east side of the school. We were going to bring the sidewalk down from the front of the school all the way down to the road to enhance student drop-off. We decided not to do that. And then the guest parking area near the front of the school, we're going to rework that so it looks a little bit cleaner.
Rory, could you tell us what we should be looking at? I'm all confused here with yellow ones and white ones.
It's the same.
Well, yeah, I realize that now.
All right, and I'm not Glory, so thank you. So we did borrow money this past spring to replace the roof over the classroom wing and over the auditorium. We still need to rebuild the soffits. That bid ended up coming in much greater than we had anticipated, so the soffits remains undone. So that's $72,000 in there for that. And then we still have repairing the leaks at the greenhouse wall connection around the corner in the back of the school. We have power plant remediation, and that increased from $80,000 to $100,000. We need to upgrade the controls, and we need to add some condensate.
Before you move on from the paving, this site work, it's a little confusing. The difference between the 8885 and the 203-4334, there's no breakdown above
Yeah,
that.
I know, and the person that priced it for us didn't give me a breakdown.
Yeah, that's okay, but the difference between the 8885 and the 203-4, just the cost, simply the cost of the blacktop?
Simply the cost of the blacktop.
So that's more than double because of the asphalt?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. We were a little confused here.
Yep. All right, going down to the auditorium. I mean, we were looking at replacing the HVAC system. That was always on our list of items. And with that would have been the ceiling and then the lights, the house lights, the sprinkler system.
Could we just stop there for a second? So right now, the situation in the auditorium is that there is no ventilation when there are actually people in there and you need ventilation. And the reason there's no ventilation is that the ventilation system is original to the building and it's deafening. You cannot run it and hear at the same time. So there's no fresh air, there's no heat, there's no air movement when that auditorium is in use.
Remind us how many people can fit in that building, or fit over there?
650?
550.
550.
550.
So of course, the more people, the more exacerbated that becomes.
So then, over the summer, you may be aware that the auditorium failed a rigging inspection, and we removed all of the rigging that was on the stage area and some of the lights that were in the auditorium area. So we intend to bring the auditorium up to a level that we can have our performances in. So have rigging so that we can rehang the curtain, we can put up the lights, and that's what that the $151,000 minimal stage lighting, hardware, and rigging, so that we would be able to use the auditorium for a performance. We would not be we'd have to still rent equipment to put on the musical, but we would be able to use the auditorium for chorus and band concerts and for other types of performances. There are classes that meet on the stage. They have very limited lighting right now, so we're hoping so that we can get that place so it's usable as a classroom again.
What's also worth pointing out as we go through this exercise and you're looking at the line items on the left-hand side, if you look in the column that says revisions October 2013, if there's not a number there, those items are not being done.
Right. So I tried to highlight them in yellow, the items that we are doing.
Could I just add a little bit more about the auditorium? And in response, Nancy, to some of your concerns, I want to try and paint a picture of what we're trying to achieve. What we're trying to achieve in that auditorium is the restoration of the full functionality that was there previously with replaced heating, ventilation, air conditioning, a completely refreshed look. That's not to say we can't replace all the seats. We're not going to be able to have the money to do it. But we're going to get everything fully cleaned. We're going to have the curtains restored. We're going to have them re-fireproofed. Everything's going to be hanging from proper rigging. So in essence, it would be like when you walk in there, if we were able to make this happen, when you walk in there, it would be as if it didn't smell malodorous and as if it was actually cool when you were in there and there was a performance going on. And the kids would still have access to the full functionality of the auditorium.
This is not improving. If we, in the original plan, you probably saw additional handicap seating and change in the slope of the aisle. If we start any of that, we have to do all of it. So we're not doing any of that.
So someone in a wheelchair just sits up back with all the lighting that we have to rent and the sound.
Or up front, which is where my dad sat for the last performance last year.
We try to accommodate them the best we can. Yep, go ahead, Christina.
I'm concerned about, like, if you're upgrading the stage lighting and the house light system and how it's all gonna tie into this really old electrical system that's already there. Like, is that part of what you've looked at, so, in regard, so.
Yeah, we have electrical engineers that have been looking at it, and
So you feel like whatever you proposed for the 151,000 would.
they're confident that they can handle this.
The scary box is what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah. that thing frightens me.
So will that be upgraded in this lighting upgrade, or is it gonna be the existing lighting electrical system in the auditorium, and then any upgrades
So that is-
have to sort of work with what's there?
I think this includes the upgrades to the black box, the new dimmer panels on the wall.
Okay, excellent.
So-
Because that thing is really scary.
Question?
I don't recall that you talked about the heating and ventilation controls update. I don't know if you skipped over that or.
So that is controls, and it's condensate tanks for the heating system. And those tanks need to be replaced. It's a health and safety hazard that we need to replace those tanks.
And what's important to note in that, we mentioned that we'll also be looking at the potential for energy efficiency improvements. So we want to make sure that any expenses we incur related to the existing system have a life that will go on if we make additional efficiency improvements, meaning that we're not going to blow $100,000 on something that then we're going to pull out in 2 years. It would be part of an ongoing plan to improve efficiency at the school.
So the next section is the kitchen, food storage, and cafeteria. And you'll notice that whole block is included except for one item, except for skylights in the cafeteria and the kitchen. We thought it was important that that whole space be gutted down to the dirt and rebuilt. It's outlived its useful life, and then some. There's equipment that doesn't work, equipment that's out of code. It really needs our attention. And Jeff's talking about energy improvements and upgrades. So when we get down to the total, we have not considered any savings that any of these upgrades will bring. So, for instance, the freezer and the cooler are water cooled, have water cooled condensers. The water is running through there 24/7. The water's not being used. It comes in, runs through the condenser, and goes down the sewer. So that's one area where we expect to see some savings in our water consumption. But we don't know how to measure that. So we have not considered savings like that.
The water cooler, excuse me.
Water cooled
The
condenser.
water cooler is for drinking water?
No, it's to cool
For the chiller.
the chiller plant.
The freezer and the cooler, in a 1950s design, you put it in a centralized location in the middle of a very hot kitchen. And you cool it. First you bring in water, you make the water cold in a condenser, and then you put the water into the sewer. Because, that's the best way we knew how to do freezing and cooling back then. So now the design is to put the freezer and cooler outside, where in Vermont it's mostly cold, and make sure that the insulation is up to code and efficient enough so that we don't have to use a lot of electricity in order to cool it. It's out of the hot environment, and it doesn't use water, without any benefit. So, right.
This is a perfect example to me of investment where there's a potential payback.
Yes.
Now, the problem with a lot of those investments, which I've overseen in my too many years on this earth, is you make the investment, but nobody ever books the savings in the budget. So the savings just, maybe they'll come, maybe they won't. And that the ability to make, when you talk about energy efficiency, Jeff, I think that's a potential payback area. But you gotta come up with a capital to invest in the machinery to make it happen. And if you don't book in your budget the savings that you expect to get from that investment, we'll never find it.
And that's kind of what I was saying about the future. We can predict what the future, we'd like the future to be, and we're going to measure, because the efficiencies that we get from these changes are going to help us fund the changes that we are not doing. So when you move from a reactive mode to a proactive mode, much like what you're describing, the reactive mode, you do what you have to do. But, you know, we've been looking and talking to many different people about how some of these changes can be more efficient. So we're counting on those efficiencies to do some of the things that we're not doing now reactively, but plan to do proactively in the future. In other words, if we plan to have an operations and maintenance budget that allows us to invest more than $6 per square foot into this building, we won't have to charge more or generate more revenue to do that, because we'll have the efficiencies. Does that make sense?
The efficiencies come over time. You don't get your payback in 1 year.
Right.
You've got bad news in this budget, next year's budget,
Yeah.
and in 2020, you get a big payback.
Yeah, we're used to working with return on investment.
Yeah, okay,
You and
good.
I think, and many people in this room are also. So an interesting conversation that we had this past weekend was to look at schools with an academic return on investment. And you have to start at the physical layer to do that. And that's what we're doing. So if you look at things in layers like I do, you know, physical layer is where you start. Then you start looking at other layers that, you know, like program and operations and maintenance. And those will allow you to look at things that aren't physical. And that's what we've been talking about. And luckily, you know, Jeff has been able to communicate that you know, that's where we intend to be. Sorry to interrupt.
And then the last section, it says small gymnasium bleachers, but it also includes some basketball backstops that need to be replaced. So the bleachers in the middle school auditorium can no longer be used. They're should be locked up or chained up or something.
They are. They're bolted shut.
They're nail closed. So so anyone coming to a basketball game in this gym will have to stand up this year. We cannot use those bleachers. They failed inspection. Our insurance company told us any claims as a result of us using those bleachers they would not honor the claim. Kathy?
Are those gonna be one entire length folding, or are they gonna be split? So like on one side, there's gonna be two, you can fold back one set, but still have one set out on that side, or is it gonna be one solid one like the other gym?
Peter, do you know?
I would assume the one side, the fan side, would all be single. You press the button, they all come out, just like downstairs. And then the other side, you could break it down because that's where the teams sit.
I just know in some schools, it's for certain events, you just need like that half section of bleachers. You don't need the other half.
And you can pretty much do anything you want, but it's kind of like, you know, it's like buying a car. Everything you want extra, you got to pay for it. You know, so the easiest thing to do is they all come out at once, or they don't come out at all.
So adding all of those items up, you can see the subtotal of 1.706409. And onto that, we add our soft costs, which is our architects and our engineers, our kitchen consultant, auditorium consultant. We have permits, bonding. So all of those costs, I've used a factor of 15%. And we also have our clerk of the works too. So 15% is $255,000. We have 12% in there for cost escalation and contingency. And so contingency is the unknown. It's what you find when you open up the wall and you need to spend more money. Cost escalation, that's important because, you know, these numbers are estimates as of now. Hopefully we can get out to bid in early February. You know, who knows what, hoping that costs would remain constant. We were very surprised on the roof bid. It came in much higher than we thought. So that's a total of 2.167 million. Unfortunately, we have incurred costs of $106,500. So those are the costs of having architects and engineers working for over a year trying to put together a package that has been defeated by the voters twice.
Kathy, a quick question on that particular item. Is that on top of the 255, or
Yes,
should the
yes.
255 contain the 106?
That's on top of that. It's already incurred. So the biggest item in the 255 are the architects and the engineering. I mean, they've only been in the design phase. We don't, the conception phase. They need to start working on bid sets and plans, and so there's a lot of work for them still to do. So the total, adding those together, is $2.273 million. Now, we could stop there and we could borrow that amount of money. And then the roof loan, the $600,000, we could pay for that over 5 years. That's what you, the voters, agreed on last May. Or we could roll that into the bond and ask to borrow $2.883 million and pay for that roof over 20 years with the bond. Cheryl?
That the loan right now, the $600,000 bond vote that we passed, could be rolled into that?
Could be rolled into that.
And to total
It was a bank loan.
Oh, that wasn't it? What was that then?
It was just a bank loan.
It was just a bank loan. Okay,
5-year loan.
Right.
Right. So that could be rolled into that, and we could borrow, 2.88. 20 years.
Now, you have some calculations as
So
to
I
what
do
that would
have
mean
some
on both sides,
calculations.
right?
So there's another sheet that was handed out.
Before you go on,
I can see why I wasn't accounting.
okay?
Anyway, let's keep going.
Does it not add up or something?
No, it doesn't square with what was in the paper.
Okay.
Is that
I mean,
true?
some work has been done since I spoke to Andy
Andy being,
Kirkcaldy, the reporter.
oh, he's the, okay. I'll apologize, if I was totally wrong on what I was planning on writing as an editorial on how you,
I mean, we were looking at working with an energy performance contractor to bring some energy updates into the school. We were advised that and what happens is they recommend improvements, and then they can quantify the savings, and then they use the savings to justify the amount that you can borrow. And sometimes you can borrow more than the cost of your improvements, and then you can use those monies to fund other things.
well, I'm just going back to what was in the paper. The paper said that the $600,000 loan down here, which we've already voted on and we agreed to pay for, and we're gonna pay for that, because that was a absolutely had to do kind of a thing.
Yes, it was.
So, and my suggestion back then was, or a couple of meetings ago, was to, hey, we've done that, so why roll it into another loan, as you may recall. The paper said that you were not gonna roll it into, you're gonna let it stand alone, and now your savings, and it didn't say what the savings was, but you were gonna save enough money to pay for that loan and the interest. So that loan is $600,000, and it was rolled out of the projection in the paper. So that tells me that there's $600,000 being invested somewhere, and I suspect it was, with all the discussions that we've had in the past, about a pellet furnace, right? And we talked about that. My estimates, and as I read this, because we're gonna improve the you know, I could be wrong.
But it's not what we're doing, so to keep going down that
Okay,
trail, we've
so-
already said there's no, energy efficiency improvements are a next round that we're gonna look at. There's no
Okay.
pellet boiler
So
in
the
this.
article that was in the paper 2 weeks ago is totally inaccurate.
David, it's been a fluid situation. We've been doing diligence on a
What?
weekly basis
Okay.
to understand what our real costs would be. We've made each of these vendors go back and reprice things because we didn't want to come to the voters with something that then wouldn't hold up. I will tell you that this board was not happy that we went to voters with an estimate of $600,000 for a roof and got bids back that were over $800,000. We weren't going to do that again. So we've spent the time to go through, scrutinize these scopes of work, do the diligence to understand what the likely cost would be so that we could have a level of confidence to come to you and say, if we tell you we're going to do this, we're going to do it. We're not going to ask you to vote on it and then say, whoops, we came in way too, the bids came in way too high, we lowballed it, we can't do it. We are trying to be transparent, to use a word of the day. So we've been doing the homework, and Andy, caught Kathy in the midst of our process of doing the diligence. And what we decided was we didn't have confidence on the energy piece just yet. The issue of whether or not the Public Service Board will approve gas service to Vergennes is an open item. It would be imprudent for the board at this point to recommend anything on that score. So that's why it's not part of it. So nobody, there's no malfeasance. It's been
That's
fluid.
exactly the point that I was gonna make when I started out, that this is the wrong time to make those kind of decisions with the
Agreed.
Public Service Board and that unbinding referendum that I suggested a long time ago. Why don't we ask the voters what they think about gas? Okay. I also want to be on a public record as saying the lady in the back who talked about this being the hub of activity and your responsibility to teach the best that you can teach the kids, totally agree with her.
Well, you two in cahoots?
However,
They all get to the grandkids first.
but she talked about two components that maybe can be broken apart. Education and a center hub for the kids to entertain themselves. We need that. I mean, both components are absolutely critical to the future of our kids. Maybe someone can be thinking about how do we break those two elements apart and provide the services that she's talking about that we need in this community.
Okay.
And that's critical thinking.
Yeah, it's critical thinking, but
Has anybody quantified how much the school would save in heating costs if gas were available?
We haven't gone there yet, but we will. I promise you.
Because that could be persuasive to a lot of people.
It could, but again,
If it's a big number.
just to repeat what Jeff was saying.
I'm not
we
saying
just-
put it in the budget, I'm not saying put it in the
Yeah.
budget. I'm
Yeah.
just saying, it would be
We've-
nice to say to the public,
We've
we're
looked
trying
at-
to do something, and if we got gas, this is what we'd save.
Yeah, in the time that I've been involved in this community, we've looked at biomass, we've looked at
Oh, I know
solar,
all that.
we've looked at,
Ridiculous.
and in this school, 5 or 7 years ago, nothing added up. So in the past 6 to 9 months, we've looked at biomass again, we've looked at solar again, we've looked at the alternatives, but until they become a reality, like you said, we're not gonna put it in the budget. We hope for the future, but
But unlike biomass and solar and all that stuff, gas is a near-term potential, apparently. Is that what I'm saying? It could be persuasive to people if they knew that it would save the school $75,000 a year, whatever it turned out to be.
I think, Kurt.
Don't put it in the budget.
If I may, I think the message that I hope you're hearing is that we will seriously consider it. It's not what we're putting on the table in front of you today because we don't believe that right now is the time to make those long-term decisions until the Public Service Board has acted and we can then confirm the estimates that we have gotten for various changeovers, be it biomass or gas, to have that public discussion at that point. So we're going to seriously consider it. We need the Public Service Board to act to know if that's a viable alternative.
In one direction, if it saw finite savings coming to important institutions in the area.
They're doing that analysis as part of their decision-making.
Okay, so to get back to this point of discussion, the adoption and warning of a proposed facility. Is there any other discussion?
So we're gonna look at the cost comparison between wrapping the $600,000 in or not, and I think that's where Kathy was.
Yep.
Yeah.
Right. So,
You've done a great job, outstanding job in laying this out.
thank you.
It's understandable.
Thank you.
First class job.
Thank our business manager for that. Thank you, sir.
Okay, so just as a point of information, at the top of the page is our current bond. That is, will be repaid in fiscal year '21.
Yep, go ahead.
I'm sorry, I don't know. I'm sorry, I want to go back to the issue of considering.
Could you identify yourself first?
Jim Lanford.
Thank you.
The topic that Kathy was just talking about, of possibly rolling that $600,000 roof loan into the long-term loan. Long-term loan's 20 years?
Yes.
What's the life expectancy of a roof? Should a roof last 20 years?
Yes.
It should.
So it
25.
makes sense to me that be done, because rolling that into a 20-year amortization versus a 5-year amortization puts another $90,000 in our pockets
Where do you see what it puts in our pockets? It's in here.
every year.
You'll see it. And,
So-
remember that the roof was done with a loan, finite loan term, amount. The bond is a different financing vehicle. So it's a much more efficient financing vehicle, and it's costs less. So not only are you amortizing over that period of time, a longer period of time, it also costs less in each of those terms.
All right, so the first section in the middle of the page, borrow for the new renovations only and pay off the roof loan over 5 years. So we would borrow $2.275 million. So I have the principal and interest. The roof loan, principal and interest. So the roof loan is $120,000 a year for 5 years. So our annual cost, $180,000, $302,000, $297. So you'll see it when we're paying off the principal. The cost is higher than it goes down, of course, when we beginning in 2020 and we have the roof paid off. The tax cost using the FY14 calculation begins at 3 cents, goes at 5 cents, 4.9 cents, and then drops down to 2.7 cents. 0.27 cents, right? If we borrow for the new renovations, including the $600,000 for the roof loan, we're borrowing $2.885 million. And then there's the comparison, 0.1 cent versus 0.3 cents, 0.37 cents, 0.36. So that's where it starts off pretty consistently.
So if I read this right, Kathy, you're looking at 80 to 80-ish $1,000 a year in savings for those 5 years, relative to paying that roof
So
off separately over a 5-year
cents.
period.
4.9 cents in cash flow.
I'm just
So,
looking at
yep.
the
Mhm.
cost difference between the total annual cost of both
Right, so that's
separately
about,
versus
it's
both
80
together.
It's about $80,000 a year. Yep.
So over a 5-year period, that's a chunk of efficiency right there.
That is a chunk of it.
That's something you can book.
It's not proposed efficiency, it's actually in a term, in a contract, in a bond, and it's something that we can tell you will happen. So that's what, we want to make sure you understand, that if we are are planning to do this in a reactionary mode, we have to do it. It's best to do it in the least expensive manner. Go ahead, Dave.
One of the things that I kind of talked about before was when this, I don't know what the proposed, if you take the bond that's coming, going to be paid off in another couple of years, if you take that, adjust it for inflation, you're probably talking a $15 million bond. Maybe, I don't know. Kathy could tell you exactly what. If you just take the base amount and adjust it, it's going to be a big amount of money. My suggestion at one point was, why don't we not go spend all that money in the first couple of years and save all that money for a couple of years and pay some cash. Start working. So forget going out immediately, because now we got all this cash we think we got in our pocket.
Yep.
And wait.
So can I just restate to you what I think I just heard you say? Which is, when the year 2000 bond expires at the year 2020, don't turn around and issue something right away, but actually book some of that savings or money that you wouldn't be spending. Is that what I'm hearing you say?
I don't know, book savings, bank it.
Yeah, exactly, exactly.
Capital fund.
Turn that
There you
into
go.
capital
Yeah,
fund
whatever.
if the voters
But-
approve, because that would be a question to ask you all.
Well, I don't know whether they need
And
to.
I won't be here then. I'm not gonna be doing the asking.
Yeah, but I don't know whether they need to approve not spending money.
Oh, no, my friend.
Yeah, you do.
Yeah.
So this is a really important point, because, if you don't think this is gonna happen in the future, I don't wanna use the wrong word here, but, if you don't have confidence in these numbers for some reason, that's okay, because when we get to these savings, you'll have the opportunity to say, give them back to me. Give me those savings, rather than put them into a capital fund. I hope you don't say that. But the voters will have a chance to say, as they do every year, give me that money back. So,
Well, now, but you're saying a different, excuse me, I think you're saying, if we go out for a bond and the voters say no, is that what you're saying?
Now, say the bond
When the
is
bond
finished
matures,
and
we
get-
have no more payments.
Right.
Then what do we do?
So you have that extra money, right?
Well,
That
no,
you've
you
been
don't-
putting
you-
out in your budget. Every year you
Well, maybe-
budgeted to
maybe you
pay
don't.
that bond. Now you don't have to pay it.
Right.
Now, the question is, okay, let's say we have $30,000 this year because we don't have the bonds done. When you present your budget, the voters get to say, well, put that money in a capital fund for future expenditures, or just cut it from our budget so we don't have to pay taxes on it this year. That $30,000. Do you see what I mean?
Okay, that's not what I heard you say initially.
okay. So,
But I mean, most of the elementary schools are doing this.
Yeah.
The towns vote that even if we don't have a bond coming due or anything, that just from their general taxation base, can we put $10,000 in our deferred maintenance or, our capital fund? And it's up to the voters to tell us whether we can do that or not. We have to ask.
So the point of this comparison is the bolded numbers that you see in the calculations. That's the point of this comparison. So if you take nothing else away from tonight, I hope you take away the fact that a loan costs more than a bond, and a budget costs more than a loan. Think about that. It costs more to put things in the budget than it does to put things into a short-term loan. It costs less than that loan to put it into a bond. And that's what these numbers are showing you.
At today's interest rates.
At today's interest rates, right. Yeah, and David and I have had lots of conversations about today's economic environment, but today's interest rates are some of the lowest in the last 30 years. Yeah. I won't, I've worked in financial environments where the prime rate was 21%. So obviously a 1% prime rate is a lot different. But I don't think any of us are going to be around here if the prime rate ever goes up to 21% again. So it's not going to be in our lifetime. So does that make sense to everybody? I mean, that's what we've been trying to say. And, you know, go ahead, David.
My original concern, and I'll express it now, was that I saw, like, the cafeteria upgrade. All I can say is that it hasn't changed much. I took out, I don't know, $48,000 for a roof lighting or something. In the original proposal, and in my opinion, I don't think we're recognizing the fact, I don't think we're recognizing the facts, the demographics of how many students we've got to feed. Maybe you are, but everything is tailored down. The number of kids we got coming. Kipling magazine just last week said that the worst thing about Vermont, and that we were the second worst state in the nation, is our population increase. It's stagnant.
Okay.
We're 10 births per 10,000 people. I mean, that's or 100,000. I forget what it was, but it's unsustainable. We have not changed our population in 10 years, and it's going. And the student population is going down for a whole bunch of reasons. So the cafeteria, why would we be replacing something and making it much? I don't know, maybe, I don't know. I look at the kids today and I think maybe they don't need a better cafeteria. They need more physical activity, I think some of them.
Go ahead.
But, go ahead.
David, you may be drawing inferences as to what you think the cafeteria is serving and who you think they're serving. Back when it was built, kids came in, they had lunch. Okay, now kids are in here for breakfast, kids are in here for lunch, kids are in here for the summer adventures and learning, the summer school program that you heard about last time. We're feeding kids throughout the summertime period, 6-7 weeks of the summer. That kitchen's in use as well. You don't have a 1950s kitchen. I did when I moved into my house. I got rid of it. I've got something that can service the needs. If it's serving 100 kids or 287, or 287 in the school year and 100 during the SAIL program, it needs to be upgraded. These are the costs. This is the best that we can do. This is what needs to be there. I was hoping to, Kurt, just take one more moment to poll some of the folks that came here to speak to us based on, you folks who came to speak to us based on what you read, and I just am curious your initial reactions based on what you've been presented tonight. Is it something that you don't feel you can live with? Is it something you feel is well thought out? Is it somewhere in between?
I am glad you asked. After listening to your presentation, I thought it was excellent, and I think you've really convinced me that this is probably very much needed. But I'm also coming from the point that our tax rate is already high. We're paying a lot of money. I really don't want to have to pay any more money. So where are you going to cut to make up the difference in the increased tax rate while this bond is in effect? Something has got to give. Your student ratio is down, and I'm sure there's areas that you can really consider of saving money so that it's quite a big an impact to the community. So that's where I'm coming from.
That's part of the broader discussion with the budget, but as I said before, I've had the unfortunate task of presiding over a reduction in program over a sequence of years. And I would like for the school and the educational and the folks that do the work here to be in a position where they can live with a program that's the same program for a few years to restore their footing. We keep sort of pulling the rug out in different ways under their feet financially. It's a board decision. It's not my own decision. I'm just stating my personal perspective as one representative from Vergennes. The efficiency opportunities are real. We're working on quantifying them. We don't, have the true numbers yet, but that's a real significant opportunity. We do look at reductions in students. We look at what it means. Can there be changes in staffing? That's different from program, and I'm not, for myself, not interested in reducing program at this time.
well, we have two legislators here tonight. So I'm wondering, is there anything that Montpelier needs to do differently, or laws that need to be passed differently or tweaked or something to help in this situation, to keep school spending down? Do they need to keep raising the school spending per pupil, or what? I don't know. I'm just curious, because when we go to them, it's kind of, they're saying, go to the school board. They're the ones that drive the spending. And we go to the school board, and they say, nope, it's the tax structure. And we're in the middle paying for this. So I'm just thinking, maybe you guys should start talking and see if you can fix something to help us all.
I'll just say that I
Your
had many
response?
excellent conversations with Representative Clark, you know, who dearly departed. Very good guy, you know, very steeped in the educational program. There's a lot of this going on. I will not point fingers at Diane or Representative Benwick at all. They're faced with pressures when they sit at those committee tables, the same as we're faced with pressures when we sit here. And I work for a state agency, so I understand stuck in the middle.
The fact of the matter is, wait a minute, excuse me.
The cost of,
Sir.
Pardon me?
There was a hand up before you.
Sorry.
Chris here.
I just wonder what the board has planned if the bond vote is defeated. I mean, is a lot of this gonna end up in the budget, or, I mean, I'm assuming that might be some of the driving to having the vote in December is because if it doesn't pass, then adjustments would have to be put into the budget, or
Yeah.
what is?
I can't predict the future, but the contingency plan would be to handle what we have to handle to remain a viable school. Yes?
I want to know what the rest of the budget is. This can't be the whole budget.
No.
This is peanuts.
Yeah, I want to know what else is on the table here.
Well, if we can stick to just this agenda item, I'd like to, but we're gonna have the next 5 months of discussions and what the rest of the budget is. Tonight is part of that, but that's not part of this financial need for the physical plant.
Just to give a very quick answer for you, sorry.
Yeah,
But
go ahead.
about $9.8 to $10.2 million is what the annual operating budget is.
This is true. So this is, I think you've done a very good job of laying out your case for the bond. You know, at times like these, if you can borrow the money, you know, to cover up some past sins, it's probably the best way to go. But at the same time, when you get to the heart of the budget, you've got to demonstrate the same zealotry and tenacity going after costs. And the costs walk in the front door every day. Most of your costs, I suspect, are walking in the front door.
I'd love to have that conversation with you.
Yeah, and so I just hope the next 5 months will be the crunchier probably.
Yeah.
And I would hope you'll have some public meetings
Yeah.
before it gets to be 20 below here in Vermont, so we can attend and talk about that.
Yeah.
A lot of us have been through this.
And I would ask you, if I could be so bold, to learn how the educational financing system is set up in the state of Vermont.
We've spent a lot of time reading it, Cheryl and a
Yeah.
couple of others, but
Because-
circulating a lot of documents.
Yes.
Yeah. It's
Very
labyrinthine, Machiavellian, whatever you want to call it. Most screwed up system I think anybody's ever invented.
Because
John Frieden.
we're more than happy to have that conversation.
Okay.
Hi, Christina.
I just want to offer that I've attended a lot of school board meetings over the last couple of years, and this board is very diligent in planning their budgets, and they work very hard at towing the line in every way they can. So I just want all of you to know that it's definitely the work that they do.
Yep. Any other discussion for this agenda item? Hi, David.
You guys are heading for the bullpen, right?
I was we've got a whole lot more business to conduct before we
Yeah.
head to the bullpen.
Yeah.
I just wanted to ask Kathy, do a logistics check on dates. You know, if we are talking about trying to run a vote in such a way that we could go to bid in February, what does that mean for us now?
Well, our committee, we had been talking about December 3rd, which meant that we could sign the warning, adopt and sign the warning tonight. However, that would put the information meeting Thanksgiving week. So if we move the election to December 10th, that would put the information meeting December 3rd, if we're looking at a Tuesday. But we would have to have another meeting next week to sign the warning, because it's more than 30, but not more than 40.
Right.
So December 10th would be the 29th day. Is that true?
If we sign next week.
If we sign next week. No, if we sign at the next board meeting,
Right.
December 10th is the 29th day, because our next board meeting is November 11th.
The details here being that there's prescribed periods of
prescribed
time
periods
between
of
when we do a
time.
warning and when we do a public informational meeting and then when we do the vote. That's very prescribed in law.
Right.
So,
So by moving from the 3rd to the 10th, we gain the time we would need to have. It requires signing of that.
but we need to do it at a special meeting as opposed to doing it at our next regular board meeting, which
Right.
is in 2 weeks from tonight.
That's right.
Right.
And we couldn't do it tonight?
We could, we've known.
It's too far at that
It's
point.
over.
Then it
Okay.
puts the
It's
public meeting
more
that.
than 40.
So in order to maximize our ability to get good people like this to come to the budget informational meeting for this bond vote, we need to have a special meeting somewhere between now and 2 weeks from now. Otherwise, we're having it during Thanksgiving week and nobody wants that. Correct?
Correct. Absolutely right.
I only have one comment, and I think you did a great job in scrubbing this down. My concern that I would have is that you read the same article that I read, that these people read only 2 weeks ago, and looked at it and said, this is indefensible. And then you went back and re-scrubbed your numbers. And I hope that's not the case, but that's the impression that I have to get. Because, you know, what, you reported this stuff to this gentleman here, apparently, and that was the plan at the time. And it's all changed. Seems to me as though it's all changed. I mean, Niels doesn't understand what I'm saying, Kat, she seems to agree with me.
Do you? I don't
Well, I don't know.
necessarily follow. I think,
Well,
I think
ask him.
Andy did a nice job of articulating the options that we were talking about and what they might mean based on the information we had at the time. In
Well, that's
no way
what-
did he misrepresent, and in no way did we misstate. I don't
No, but
think.
it's all changed, hasn't it?
I would just comment that if people read the first article, that they would.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear what you said.
If people read the first article, would they not be likely to read another article with new information?
I got the article with me.
I'm sure you do. My point is that if there's updated information, people read the article, the first article, they're also likely to read the second article with new information. So I'm not quite.
I don't know, yeah, this was, I can check the date. Matter of fact, I'd like to check. Do you mind if I check the date?
What difference does it
The
make?
point-
All I'd like to do is I'd like to move forward.
Okay.
Because I don't think what happened in the paper,
past.
consideration that we put in the paper, what we have in front of us right now is what we would be, you know, acting on.
So, Mr. Chair.
So I want to be clear about this. There's a couple of conversations going on here. I want to be clear about this. What we're talking about, you know, putting on paper is what we've discussed tonight. Not anything that's been in the paper before, what we've discussed tonight. Go ahead, Carol. And Carol's going to be the last one.
If you guys would consider a conversation over inviting, you know, we have some pretty amazing business people out there into the facilities, so that there's like this a community effort and collaboration.
You can talk to the principal or the co-principal and invite anyone you'd like.
There's one
And-
suggestion, Mr. Chairman.
Oh, wait.
I think you have a cogent story here.
Yeah.
I would urge you to consider, at the time when everybody has to vote on this, forming what I'll call, with a smile, the Truth Squad.
Yep.
And sending people out to speak to the Rotary Club, to the Kiwanis, to the Lions, and, because we probably don't do as good a job, we have a good case of communicating it as we might. And I just think, nothing against the Addison Independent, I'll see you later about some things I do have against the Addison.
Well,
But I would urge you to consider
yeah. Not to cut
selling
you
this
short.
actively.
Not to
I mean,
cut you short, but I think we have the best truth squad facing me right now.
Yeah, but
I do.
somebody's got to call the Rotary Club program, Jim, and say, we'd like to send somebody to the next meeting.
I would love you to do that.
That's no way to treat a volunteer.
Let me tell you about dirty volunteers. 10 years, my
I got
friend.
Jeff in mind. He's
So
good at
just
that.
to bring things back around again, just so we're clear, you know, you can see that the majority of this page is not yellow. The majority of this page is things that we were considering that we're not considering now, just so that everyone's clear. And I think we laid out a timeline for success, because just to remind you, the last time we were not successful, it cost us money. And we're all taxpayers too. We don't want to cost money if we can avoid it. So that's why we're very careful about timelines, and I hope that you will all talk to the people that you see every day, as well as create more opportunities to talk to each other. And if someone asks for one of us to join you, I can speak for myself. I'll make every effort to do that.
So I don't think do we need a motion for anything at this point, or just for
If we're not going to take any
special
action
meeting?
tonight. Yeah.
Special meeting.
Okay.
So I'd entertain a motion to set a date and time for a special meeting for the sole purpose of adopting and warning a proposed facility upgrade at the amount of
Well, that's what they're for.
$2,883,539.
Need a date and time.
So it has to be next week.
Could we consider doing this early morning at the district?
I can.
That would work by you?
What's
Jeff?
early morning?
What time do you get in? What time do you have to be in, Amanda?
8 by 8.
8, 7:30?
7:30 is fine.
Could we do that? Let me look. Well, you know what, we don't, actually,
Tuesday?
the 4th is Monday. I could do that too.
Fourth,
Monday, the 4th? That's next Monday, right?
7:30.
Next
Yep,
Monday.
that's fine.
Okay.
Is that convenient?
Yeah.
Everybody can
Yeah.
do that?
Yep.
So, Mr. Chair, I move for a 2-minute break.
First, we have a motion on the floor.
That's right.
I haven't heard a second yet.
Second.
Excuse me, could you please just, we have a motion on the floor. If you're not interested, then thank you very much for coming tonight. And I think you know that all of us are involved in this, and please contact us with any questions or comments. Thank you.
I personally would like to thank you all for being willing to do this. Because if it weren't you up there, it would probably be some of us. And you're doing, I think,
Join us.
we appreciate all the work you're putting in.
Great. So there's a motion on the floor for a special meeting to warn the amount of that motion, and it's been seconded. Is there any more discussion? The meeting is November 4th, which is a Monday at 7:30 a.m. at the central office. Any more discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye, please.
Aye.
All those opposed? Any abstentions? Thank you very much.
Move for the second inning stretch.
Trying to think of,
Nobody?
I'd rather just continue, if that's all right. If you need to get up and stretch, feel free to do so. And if you need to leave, then we won't hold any votes without you. But that brings us back to the published agenda. And the published agenda had reports to the board. And we have no student representatives. Is that because they're not elected yet, or? Tommy?
Tommy Lee.
Yeah, Tommy Lee.
And we had a number of candidates come forward, and I think, I'm not exactly sure where we are. We had 2, and then we ended up with 2 or 3 more resumes. And I think we're sort of somewhere in the middle of that process.
Okay. Just if I could, I want to emphasize the fact that we really would like to have students
Yes.
here.
Mhm.
And if there's anything we can do to help get them here, let us know. Because it's a very important, again, something this past weekend that we talked about as a school board association, and people might not know this, but there is a student on the state school board with voting rights. So that student has input to what happens on a statewide basis. And although these students don't have voting rights in this environment, we listen to them and ask them, like you said, they're the experts of what probably will work in the future. So we want their input as much as possible. So do you have a report?
Well, I think the thing that Ed and I have been spending most of our time on is getting the supervision and evaluation process underway with teachers, and starting that process, meeting about professional growth plans, and setting meetings for the observation cycle. So we've both been doing a lot of walkthroughs, reporting on that at our various levels, and other than that, just the other stuff we do every day around student behavior and management. So that's it. I think
Okay.
could talk about other things, but we could also move on with the agenda.
Okay. Any questions for the principal from the board? Hi, David.
Hi, Neil.
Kurt.
Kurt. There was a very good article in Vermont Digger. It was a question and answer for the new Secretary of Education or whatever. It'd be worth reading. She's for a lot of things and against a lot of things, and just for your point of reference. And and one of the things you should do, I think, in the future, and I'd like you to do it when I get back from Florida, if I ever get there, but is invite her down for a question and answer. Let these people explain why we're concerned about our taxes.
Yep. Yeah, she also spoke this past weekend at the Vermont School Board and Vermont Superintendent Association.
This was a question and answer
Yep.
prior to that meeting, because the reporters, I guess, weren't included or something.
Yep.
So just wanted to bring that up.
Thank you.
Kurt?
Yep.
I just want to follow up on one of the items that you had been asking about, and that was the preparation of an operations and maintenance plan for the facility. Has there been any progress on that?
Well, I've been doing inventories through the building around things that need to be maintained, inventories of some of the equipment, some of the furniture. Mr. Webley has been doing the same thing. We've been talking to Bob Worley about that. I had I brought forward a document that I had some familiarity with from my other district about a plan, and we've had conversations here at the school level. It hasn't gotten beyond that to the district level to bring I sent it to Kathy and the superintendent. So, it's something we're trying to do and get a handle on that. It's sort of why we just had this hour-and-a-half conversation about some of those things. So, right. It takes time to count all the chairs in the building and look at the tables and determine how many need to be replaced now and how many seats are cracked and that sort of thing. Whiteboards and then just the facility piece too. So,
do we need help to do that? Do you feel like you have the tool and it's just a matter of time? And I understand the time is huge. My hope is that once we have a plan, the maintenance of that plan then will take much less time each year. We're starting from a standstill and trying to bring it to a point where it's comprehensive. That's a lot of work.
Yes, it's a lot of work. I'm at a disadvantage because I'm still new.
Or an advantage.
Right. I think there are going to be areas that will need expertise. It's just like evaluating what needs to be repaired in, say, the auditorium or any of these areas. We had to bring consultants in to determine that. I think it depends on what that very clear picture will look like. certain things can definitely be done at the school level.
I think it was our last meeting. There was a request having to do with a policy in regard to maintenance of buildings and grounds, and we have a draft to look at tonight, so that might help.
Yep. But just to continue what Jeff was asking, and he probably said it a lot nicer than I'm about to. And that is, we were told we'd have it by the end of September. It's now the end of October. So if we're not going to have something by a time that we were told, please tell us when we're going to get it. And I know you're at a disadvantage because you're new. And I just would hope you'd bring this message back to Ed and to Bob, that we'd like to know when we're going to have it, because we as a board have staked our plan on having that. And that's the beginning of where we would go strategic, because it's really important. Now granted, you talked about counting desks and chairs. I don't consider a complete inventory as a plan. You know, I know it's something that you have to think about when you're doing budgeting, but I just want to know what's out there. I mean, and if anybody knows if the furnace is beyond its usable life. So, do you see what I'm saying? So by the next meeting we have, if you could just give us another date, that would be great. Or you and Bob and Ed.
And I want to emphasize what I said. If in order to do that, and we'll look at the policy, if in order to do that, we need help. We need templates. We need, somebody from another district who's worked on it. We need a consultant. Please tell us that we need help. But what we don't want is no plan because we didn't get the help we need in time.
Understood.
Okay, thank you.
Would you like to say anything else?
No.
Wow.
Okay.
The principal in the principal's
Then over to Tom.
office or something like
So
that.
mine will be short.
Ow.
First is, Ed asked me to share a proposed course. This is for your consideration. This is homework for you, and pick it up at the next meeting. I can tell you, this is a proposed course, PBGR portfolio class. It would be for credit, a one-semester credit. And you can read for yourself the pieces involved. The notes that he gave me, thinking about the PBGR course, students who feel the need for in-school time and adult guidance on a PBGR project would take this course for a block a day for a semester. The reason it is in course form is so that students would not ruin extracurricular eligibility. Only full-time enrolled students are eligible via the Vermont Principals Association. It should likely be a credit-bearing as an elective course would be. So that's for next meeting, a preview for you tonight. The other thing I want to mention, in light of the conversation that we've been having and had again this evening, that is in regard to funding public education in the state of Vermont. You've heard me speak over the years about efforts to try and control costs, initiatives that are at a state level or local level, and yet again we're involved in that process because we are, as someone mentioned earlier, at another crunch time. And next Wednesday, I'll be in an all-day meeting at VSA in regard to the impact of policy and program implementation that we're being asked to do, in most cases without funds to do it. And the other piece of the day is around the consolidation of special ed into the SU as mandated by the recent legislation. So both of those sessions involve strategies and costs, and both obviously are circumstances that will impact us in this coming year. That's all I have. Thank you.
Kathy, your name is, or your position is down here for a report to the board, but Are you gonna cover everything under other things?
She's got budget
No,
too.
I just want to mention a few things, so.
Yeah.
I distributed the audits in final form. We had gone over the drafts, June?
At our June meeting.
Yeah, so that's the final reports
This is the fiscal 12.
for fiscal 12, and our auditors are devoting the next 3 weeks to us beginning Monday morning for fiscal 13. So I'm excited about that, I think, in 3 weeks. Then I'm not gonna spend only a minute on it, but we have the budget to actual, through the bills that we'll be approving later. And there was a request to look at this every month, even though typically I don't bring this to the board during budget season. It just makes the meetings, a little bit too number heavy. What we have here is also, in addition to all the expenses, it's the salaries that are under contract have been encumbered here. So you see the encumbrance column has the salaries remaining to be paid out plus the Social Security. The biggest thing in here that is not encumbered are the benefits. So it would be health insurance and, for the most part, and then dental, disability, life, all of that other stuff for a little part of that. So that would be a big item that is not, we're obligated to pay it, but it's not in the encumbered column.
Mhm.
So it's budgeted, there's an actual environment, and that's why the percent remaining is higher than the other line items.
Right.
Yep, okay.
Typically a lot of supply spending happens at the beginning of the school year. So I would expect, some of those items might not be proportionate to the amount of time that we are into the year. So just looking at page 12, looking at the totals for the general fund. So our budget is $9.499 million. We've actually spent a little over $3 million. Encumbrances, those are the extras. So salaries and Social Security that we're obligated to pay out based on a contract, $3.489 million. For an amount remaining of $2.9 million. Right.
Thank you. I'm the representative of Vergennes. Oh, I'm sorry, Carol. Go ahead.
The administration's balance to
Pardon me?
have the balance for FY 13 year ending from the administration.
Yes, we had a forecast of that at our meeting in September. We got an internal report. And that showed a deficit at the end of FY 13 of approximately $341,000.
And then I just heard our auditors are spending
Monday
3
morning.
weeks on us in the next
Beginning
Monday
yes.
to do this, so.
I have one more question. Because when, during public comment time, we didn't have a chair, so now that Kurt's the chair, you had told me that I could get a meeting for my audit questions.
Excuse me?
I was told that, the last meeting, to wait until there was a chair.
Okay.
To see if I can get a meeting, with my audit questions.
Right, you requested that meeting and then you requested it to be a quasi-public, quasi-non-public meeting, so I would hope we could sort out what kind of meeting it's going to be.
Yeah, I haven't had time enough to look back at that in my current role, so I certainly would like a little time. Perhaps we can discuss that and, address it in public in the next meeting. Okay, thank you. Okay. What you understand?
Huh?
Is that what you understand?
Fine by me, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I was the one that asked Carol if we could wait till we had a chair in
Yeah.
order to sort out and decide exactly how to answer the questions
Yeah.
that she's got.
And I'd like to go back and sort it out and come up to a conclusion, but I haven't had enough time yet.
Of course. In the last hour or two,
Yeah.
2 hours, 16 minutes.
Why not?
Oh, okay. So, as I was starting to talk about Hannaford, I'm the representative for Vergennes Union High School on the Hannaford board, and we spent the last Thursday, Friday together at the Vermont School Board Association. Lynn Cole is the superintendent, and he was there. Justin, and I'm not going to get last names because I'm sorry, but the chair of that board and 2 other representatives were there. So it was interesting to see how technical centers view the Addison, the Hannaford Technical Center, and they come to Lynn for a lot of discussion and ask him for a lot of advice. So I think you can take pride in the Hannaford Center being in Addison County. But I will also say there's a lot of pressure at the Hannaford Center as well because of students either not choosing the programs that are there or there not being any students. So these are things that I think should be in your mind as administrators and as board members. Is we have a wonderful resource at the Hannaford Center, and it's underutilized. So there might be some discussions about that in the future. The solar project is almost completed. The other improvements that we're making to both North and South Campus have all been covered by a capital fund. So no increase no direct increase in funding was needed for those. The meat cutters program has been wildly successful, if I can use that word, because Lynn has taken it to other organizations across the Northeast. For those of you who don't know, there's a mobile processing unit that was created at the Hannaford Center, and primarily for poultry, but we'll do other fowls at this point in time. And they also are teaching butchers, adult butchers, how to take livestock and butcher them with less stress. In other words, by going to the farm rather than having the livestock taken to a central processing unit. So that's been another a real success for the Hannaford Center. I won't go into any more detail.
Thank you.
Yeah. It's an exciting place over there. If you've never been there, please go, because I'm having a blast. Next is the bills.
For $1,197,930.30.
I will second that motion.
Okay, so there's a motion on the floor to approve the bills in the amount of $1,197,930.30. Did you notice anything unusual, or is there a reason why it's over $1 million?
The bond payment's in there, so the principal is $450,000.
Oh, that's this month?
Yeah.
Okay. That
Okay.
would account for most of the.
$420K in bond.
Yeah. That's just the principle.
Yeah. Okay. Any other discussion? Pass them over, I'll get it started. Did we have a second? I'm sorry.
I seconded it.
Yeah, okay. Any other discussion? Any other questions? All those in favor signify by saying aye, please.
Aye.
Any opposed? Or abstentions? Thank you. Maintenance budgeting. It's being passed around. A new policy? So the board had discussed the possibility of creating a policy that talks about budgeting for maintenance and facilities and grounds. What you have in front of you is a draft, a first effort to try and create that. The intent was to focus on two salient points that were brought up in that discussion. One was, and referred to just earlier, the first is the annual budget proposal. And the recommendation is that the board would indicate an amount not to exceed a certain dollar amount or a % of budget of the total operating budget for identified maintenance and repair needs, and by October 1st of each year, the supervisor of operations and maintenance would prepare and submit to the board an outline of how such funds would be expended during the forthcoming year. So that's one arm of this two-legged chair. That doesn't work, does it? In addition, the board would establish a capital projects fund for the purpose of addressing unanticipated maintenance and repair needs. Upon receipt of a detailed expenditure proposal, we'll consider and approve all expenditures from this fund. The capital projects fund will be presented annually to the voters as a separate article. So if you'd like more description included in the budget, included in the policy, I'd need to know that. The intent here was to hit both of those points. So if there's any, if anyone's interested in adding or updating any of this, please let Tom know prior to the next meeting. Yeah, and we'll come to the next meeting as a first reading.
Okay.
All right.
Should we consider that the capital projects fund would be a not to exceed some proportion of the annual budget, or alternately, not to be less than some smaller proportion of the budget?
Yep.
I don't know whether there's interest in that or just leave it blank as it is. I don't know I can't remember how the elementary schools decide. I think it's just $60,000 or $50,000 or something.
You're looking at a contribution on an annual basis in the capital projects proposed as a separate article. So
Right.
something to sustain over a period. You're not going to spend it all each year.
Exactly. No, but my point is, do we want to set a minimum that we would propose to the voters? They can say no.
Yep.
But, propose a minimum of 0.5% or a minimum 1% might be a little bit fat.
You could do that like is mentioned in the first paragraph.
Michelle, how do you guys do it?
Well, we have a maintenance line, and we do budget for maintenance.
Mhm.
But for our capital projects funds, we always go as a separate article to the town saying, we propose $20,000 because our boiler is 15 years old, and if we start and they either say yay or no to that.
Right.
But within our budget, we do have a line for maintenance.
Now, I was just curious how you
But we
set the
don't have a
capital reserve number.
We don't have,
There was no formula.
we look at the budget that we've created, and, in the past, since I've been on the board in 4 years, we've been out of the penalty, and we're desperately trying with reduced enrollment to stay out of the penalty. And we
Right,
look
so
at what savings we would have to lower our budget, and then say, well, if we've cut this, can we go back and ask the town, please give us $20,000 of this so we can put it into our our capital account. And they've been very generous about that.
And I think it's similar at Ferrisburg, but I haven't been there.
It is, and VUES also.
Yeah.
So a conceptual distinction I would ask us to think about is, in the first event, the annual budgeting, my hope is that that's, what's going to dovetail with this plan. And that's going to pay for, in cash, on an annual basis, the stuff that doesn't last long. So we're going to be on a regular cycle in which we're going to replace carpet in 4 classrooms every year. I don't know if that's the number. We're going to repaint 3 classrooms every year. We're going to replace the door hardware in 6 classrooms every year. That's what that first item is for. It's the stuff that wears out. The second piece, the capital projects fund, I would actually think is addressing not unanticipated, but in fact anticipated maintenance needs.
Probably both.
But that we would be looking at, okay, if we replaced the roof in 2013 and it's got a 25-year life and we add inflation, this is what it would take. I'm not sure we're going to be able to fund it, but we should be able to take our major capital items and have them each have a life and a depreciable basis, and we should make a judgment each year in terms of what we go and ask for to be able to put aside so that we can deal with those longer-term capital items and have money in the bank when they need to be replaced, because we know they will need to be replaced.
Yeah, and then your emergency becomes contingency on that.
Yep.
See, our bond is done this year too. I'm gonna try and have something.
Okay. Any other questions or good?
Thank you.
Yep. Personnel.
We have approval of department heads, advisors, and winter coaches, and I think that is attached.
Yep. It was sent out with the agenda.
And Peter is still here.
Yep.
In case.
Oh, jeez. Move to approve the ballot.
Attached to the.
I read them. I read the names already.
Yeah.
You want to see it?
Some of them are, yeah.
So the recommendation is to employ coaches, advisors, et cetera, per the attachment.
I read the attachment. So I move to approve the slate of recommendations from Peter.
Second.
Just to, make sure we have all the detail here. It's October. The one question I had, Peter, is I didn't know all the people on here, so are all these currently coaches or activity directors?
Yeah, I think you only have, if I remember right,
Have-
like a month ago I sent it in. I think it's
Well, let me
just
read
the
it.
high school one.
Yeah, varsity is Billy Waller, JV is Kelly Treya.
Yep.
Varsity boys, Peter Quinn, JV boys, Wayne Jones, varsity wrestling, Nate Kittredge, Scott Bissonette for JV, cheerleading, Jennifer Johnson, middle school wrestling is Nate Kittredge, varsity indoor, Jeff Kaufman, yearbook, Cookie Stepp, and Diane Marcotte.
Yeah, Diane and Cookie are new. They're replacing Kim Lana, who left to take a teaching position at Bellows Falls, I think.
Okay.
So Cookie had done it before, and she's gonna do it again, working with Diane, in the hopes of Diane taking over and, having somebody in place for years to come. The rest of them are all new, except for Nate taking over the middle school. Our middle school wrestling coach resigned. His kids are no longer going to be involved in the program.
Yep.
Nate's been, helping
Yeah.
to run that, so he's
great.
just gonna take it over. It's been going well. So
Yep.
other
That's
than that, yeah, everybody is is the same. So
Okay, great. Any other discussion? No. So there's a motion on the floor?
Yes.
And it's been seconded? All those in favor?
Aye.
Say aye. Any opposed? Or any abstentions? Thank you. We already did that.
Oh, you do?
Yeah,
Okay.
budget. I'm chuckling because I'm a Yankees fan.
Oh.
Okay.
Couldn't have planned it better.
So with this budget goes this little sheet that I had left for you. It says FY15 budget assumptions. So, and just to remember that, so this draft of the budget only has salary and benefit changes. So there are no other changes to this budget.
This is the budget for year 2014, 2015.
That's correct. So looking at the assumptions that I used, I had prepared this using a health insurance increase of 8%. We just found out that the increase is projected to be in the neighborhood of 4.5%. So I did not make that change to this budget. So I used 8% for health. I used 3% for dental. I have no guidance on that as of yet. I just chose 3%. Support staff salary, there's an increase of 3.25% as per their contract. Teachers, there is no increase for teachers because they are under negotiations for that year. That will be beginning soon.
So you kept them level, or you
Kept them
increased them
level.
by
Kept
some?
them, no, kept them level, unless they had a column change. So special education is still in here, and that's just on page 11 for your reference. So I am working to move special ed and speech to the central office, which is a mandate for us for beginning 14-15. And then there will be an assessment that will be coming out of that. So the SU budget will have 3 assessments. I'll have an administrative assessment, a triple E assessment, and they'll have a special ed assessment for 14-15. And we're quite frankly working on how we're going to assess the costs. So I know we're assessing using equalized pupils, but there are some other costs that we can have remain at the individual schools for the high spending kids. So we're working on how that will look. So the budget that we look at in November will start to have that change be in it. We'll be looking at the requests to the principals for supplies and any other expenses that are coming from within the building, so those changes will be made. Hopefully we'll have a maintenance proposal that we can incorporate into this budget. So just looking at maintenance, so that's 2,600, so that's on page 18 and 19. So you can get an idea of the maintenance that's been budgeted. So just look down at the very last item on page 18, building and maintenance repair. So for 12-13, we budgeted $40,000 and we spent $78,000 on that line. So we budgeted $47,500 for 12-13. And the same for 14-15. So, I mean, that's just, like I said, nothing has been changed except for benefits. So I'm hoping to have a proposal so that we can move forward responsibly. And as Jeff said, we are at the bottom of our cohort schools as far as maintenance per square foot.
This budget is now at that level.
Yes, no changes have been made.
Just a note, perhaps before we go any further, if you haven't noticed already, the heading at the top of the page needs to change, and so does the budget. Just before the proposed should be budget for 13-14.
Yep.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
Like Clary said.
Yep.
And budget at $6 per square foot.
So looking at the very last page, So just with the benefit changes and changes to support staff only, we're looking at an increase of 3.32% already. So that's the first run without any input from Ed or Stephanie.
Do you have an intuition of what the percent increment is to incorporate, even if you just sort of do a linear projection of what the teacher contract would look like next year, if it was a 3% or something like that, what that's going to look like in terms of this percent increase in this budget?
Let me just see here. Well, I haven't done any calculations, but the teacher salaries in total right now without an increase are roughly $3.3 million.
Okay.
So 3% of that
So
would
it'd be
be
like
about $100,000.
Which is about 1% on the budget, right?
Yes.
A little more, just a little more, based on last year's numbers? Okay.
An order of magnitude, what's the difference in health insurance?
Oh, yes.
Any idea?
Right, from 8 to 4? Uh-huh. Half. Whatever that is.
We got that. Half of
but,
what?
But you know, you gotta sum it, you gotta go in and like each column, you know?
Okay, I didn't know if we had
So
it.
the insurance, I have the number, so the difference between the 8% and 4.5% is $44,000.
Oh, that's not as exciting as I thought.
The total health insurance at 4.5% is $1.2 million.
Yeah, remember it's a percent.
Right.
Not a percent of budget.
No, I get it. Hi.
Do voters have any control over the health expense? That's all union contract.
It's actually very economical in this state. The way that we get health insurance, we're self-insured. So it's very economical. So if we had to go out to bid for the state employees and teachers of this state, we'd see a very volatile amount. And
Get to the new single payer program that the state is offering? Huh?
completely different.
Why?
Because and we're just looking at the beginnings of this. We've been briefed once on it, but we won't be able to be self-insured anymore, to put it in layman's terms.
But would that represent some significant cost savings to the voters? If we did go to that.
I really can't make a comment on that right now.
When would we be able to tell that?
Couple of years.
And why would it take so long? This thing's supposed to be implemented the first of the year, right?
2017 is when the state's gonna move to the single-payer system, and that's when the changes are gonna occur here.
I thought it was first of the year.
No. The exchange, everyone has to have insurance by certain dates. So what I think you're referring to is people are registering with the exchange and they have to have insurance by a specific date. That doesn't mean that the teachers and the state employees are all gonna move into the exchange by that date. They're not. There's gonna be several years before that.
Would you project that they will?
Well, they will move they'll move somewhere, yes. Whether.
Yeah, I'm on Medicare thing.
Yeah.
I don't come in
So-
under it, so.
So the question is at what level is it going to be funded? And that's the thing that we don't know. Like, if you don't have insurance today, if you're just, a regular worker bee and you don't have insurance today, then it's gonna be an incremental increase, right? But if you have insurance today and it's funded by your company, if you're the worker bee, then, the company has to decide whether they're gonna fund it or not. And there's, a whole big algorithm about whether you have a certain level of funding or whether you're gonna take a penalty or, there's just a lot to the law. But we're learning about it, quickly. But hopefully nothing will change soon. Hi.
Hi. Hey, I just have a
question, the report you just handed out, the third column over budget, should that be 2013 to 2014?
Yeah, we didn't say it loud enough.
Oh, I didn't hear you say that,
Yeah.
okay. And then I just have one other quick question. When you develop, who develops the, like, department budgets? Is that done in-house in the school? So I looked over the budget versus actual from the last meeting that you folks handed out. And I was just wondering, I was comparing department by department, and I noticed, for instance, there was one department that was like $8,000 over budget. And like, does that get scrutinized at some point by who, and how is that handled? I'm just curious.
It gets scrutinized and handled.
Okay.
There may have been legitimate reasons for that to happen. I can't comment right now. Christina, I don't know what it was.
Okay, I mean, if I have specific questions about that, would I direct those to who? I was just curious.
I think you go right to Ed and Steph.
Okay.
Ed and Steph.
All right, great, thank you.
And then just the last thing on my list, so it's still to come, but not until December. So it's in December that we know what the revenues are and equalized pupils are, and then the factors that will help us to compute the taxes, to do the calculation. So all of those things come at various times throughout the month of December.
So, for those of you who haven't been through this before, I hope you're gonna join us every month and look at how this changes, because every time we put together a draft, we put it together with what we know at that point in time. And as you heard tonight, there's a list of things that we don't know. And as we get closer and closer to making decisions, hopefully we get as close as we can to what we think we know. And then we have to make a decision, even if we don't know everything. So that's the fun that we're just starting. Thanks, Kathy. Is there any executive session tonight?
One quick question
Yep.
for either you, Kurt, or Kathy.
Yep.
Any bad surprises of any kind on the roof over there, on top of the auditorium?
There's some rot and we're
Yeah.
working on how to design a trim design. There's no meeting tomorrow.
Okay.
There is another change order coming through. But I think we're still okay.
Yeah. So far, the additional work change orders have been few. There have been some savings that we've discovered.
Good.
So they're kind of counteracting each other. There are some questions in design that have come up, like where the lobby roof comes to the auditorium, building, there's kind of like a 3-layered V there. So they probably already have a solution for it. But at first it was like, what do we do here? Because it's just the way the building is, or the two buildings come together, or two level surfaces come together. And I think after the last meeting I was at, they were going to start cutting in and really being able to identify.
So I think they'll be
Great.
done next week.
Yeah.
With the whole project?
We're looking at a
Yeah.
final job
Wow,
meeting on
awesome.
Tuesday and
Yeah.
to do the
Great.
punch list.
Great.
So the end of the week.
Great
Yeah.
news.
Yeah, that side was much bigger than this side.
Okay.
Yeah.
We'll have a provisional warranty until they can come in and do the inspection.
Yeah. I don't remember anything else that came up last time. There's no meeting tomorrow?
Pardon me?
There's no meeting tomorrow?
No meeting tomorrow.
Reminder of meeting on Monday morning,
7:30.
7:30.
7:30.
Central office.
Yeah,
AM.
November 4th. And then the subsequent board meeting will be on the 11th, which is the week after that. And then the supervisory union meeting on the 20th, which is the week before Thanksgiving. And with that, anybody who wants to stick around and talk baseball, well, the Red Sox are playing the Cardinals. I'm a Yankees fan, so Be glad to talk about next season. Thank you very much. We're adjourned.